Father, I just pray that you bless us all, each and every soul that has been touched by the evil of Jimmy. I ask that your will be done through us, your humble servants. In Jesus' name, amen.
There you go. That's something like that.
Cool.
I thought that he was a good man. I had no idea the depths of the evil inside of him. You cannot explain evil, but when you've touched it and let it touch you and slept next to it in your bed, and you find out it affects you in more ways than you could possibly imagine.
I just came to do this interview because I think I was ready to tell my story from start to finish. It's very hard to talk about it, but it makes me who I am today, a strong person.
He was slamming the pillow right next to my head while he was bearing down on my throat.
And he took and ripped my shirt, and then he tied my hands up.
He choked me until I passed out.
At that moment, it was like, he's going to kill me. It was like right after Valentine's Day. One night, all of us girls went out to this bar called the Buttercup. And he was at the bar, and I met him. He was very handsome.
Hey there.
Hi.
Asked me to dance. We danced, and just seemed really nice. And we exchanged phone numbers, and we left. And then he called me up, and we started dating. Fell in love with him, and he was just very sweet and charming, and he liked my son Craig. Just seemed like a very nice guy. This is a picture of our wedding day, June 9th, 1979. I see a happy couple in love. It was kind of a small wedding, mostly family. I remember that I was walking down the aisle, and I just look over, and my sister was crying, and somebody had given her a tissue, and I just acknowledge it as she's really happy for me. Really didn't think anything of it at the time. But when we got to the reception, and she was still crying, I didn't understand why. Something was wrong, and she didn't tell me. She hid it, which I thought was kind of weird. I really didn't know why she was crying.
Hey. Everything okay? Yeah, everything's fine. It's nothing. Are you sure?
Years later, she came out and told me that Jim had raped her. He used to go fishing up where she lived, and so he stopped by her house. She wanted to say something at the time, but she just didn't think I would believe her.
Oh, I'm so happy for you guys. I swear.
He was so nice, and everything seemed to be great. I thought it was just tears of happiness at the time. In the beginning, our marriage was good. Our sex life was great. But one time, we were upstairs, just started kissing and a little bit of foreplay. And then he started getting on top of me with his hand around my neck. And he started choking me. It was like out of the blue, because he had never done that before. So I was kind of scared, and then I was mad. I just pushed him off.
What are you doing?
I'm not into anything like that. He was really apologetic. I won't do it again. I won't ever do it again.
I'm so sorry.
I accepted his apology, and we just kind of moved on. He made a promise to me that it wasn't going to happen again, and I really believed that it wasn't going to happen again. Jim started getting more aggressive, started more choking. Wouldn't happen all the time, but it would happen more frequently. And there was one particular time I remember that he was choking, and I was kind of fighting him at first. But then I discovered if I didn't fight him, it would be less painful. I didn't tell anybody about it or anything. Just kind of shrugged it off. I was in love with him, but I knew this behavior was not normal. And it got to the point where I just didn't really want to have sex because I didn't know what he was going to be like. So there was some time where I didn't have sex with him. Jim usually, when he went out with the guys, he would always come home at a reasonable hour. Usually, after the bar closed, he would come home. One night, he went out with Donnie to a bar, and I was at home, just on the couch, just waiting, for Jim to come home. I'm looking, I'm like, well, where is he? Never had gone out all night, stayed out all night. But I couldn't figure out why he wasn't home yet. I thought maybe he was in an accident or something. I just looked at him and I said, where you been all night?
Well, nice of you to show up.
What, are you waiting up for me?
Yeah, that's what people do when they're worried.
And he said that he had too much to drink and he just ended up in Donnie's driveway and slept the night there. It didn't make sense to me because where he was at the bar, we live right around the corner. Why didn't you just walk home?
I'm gonna go upstairs.
But I believed the story. I believed that's where he went. I never suspected that he would lie to me.
Hello?
I got a call from a detective asking me if they could speak to Jim.
Are you sure that you have your information right?
He was the prime suspect. I said, what's going on? I got a call from a detective asking me if they could speak to Jim. And I said he was still sleeping, and he said Holly was missing.
Oh, no. Is she all right?
Holly Cody, we graduated together in '74. We became really good friends. She was a cocktail waitress, and I was helping her out babysit, and usually nights because she worked nights. And Jim knew her because she was my friend.
Jim, I don't understand. What does Jim have to do with this?
The doctor told me that Holly's car was still at the bar, and that they had people at the bar that saw Holly and Jim get in his car and leave the bar.
He said he was at the bar, But he didn't mention seeing her.
And he said, well, Holly never came home all night. And I would have some questions for him. It just made me concerned, did he think that Jim had something to do with, with Holly not coming home? I said, I can have him call you when he wakes up.
Yes, I'll let him know.
So I went and woke him up and told him.
Hey, Jim.
I had a detective call and he asked me questions.
What?
Holly's missing and she didn't come home. What's going on?
Why do they want to talk to me?
Apparently people say they saw you with her.
And he said, yeah, we ran into her at the bar.
Yeah, we saw her last night.
And then he brought Donnie across town and dropped him off. And he went and slept in his yard. I said, you need to call these people back because they want to ask you some questions. And he said, okay, I'll talk to him. I don't have anything to hide. I didn't believe that he could have something to do with her disappearance. But he didn't call anybody. Front page news that says prime suspect. They thought that he was the one that killed her. When I read that in the paper that Jim was the prime suspect, it gripped my heart. I think of how young she died and how she never got to live her life. I mean, she was just starting her life out. I mean, Heidi's really little there. She never got to see her daughter grow up. And now Heidi doesn't have a mother. I asked Jim, why do you think people are asking you the prime suspect? You must know something. They questioned us. And I said, I wasn't there. I don't really know what happened. And then they talked to Jim.
Jim, you have to tell me the truth.
I'm telling you the truth.
And they had no evidence. I mean, if they had evidence, they would arrest him, but they never did.
We're gonna get through this.
Still, I was in denial. I didn't want to believe it. He had come home about 2 a.m. He walked into the bedroom and he said that we're going to have sex whether you want to or not.
Take off your clothes.
Sure. I don't want to.
So we hadn't had sex for a while.
What are you doing?
He took the fan out of the window. He said, if you scream, nobody will hear you. And then he got on top and started choking me. He had both hands around my neck, squeezing tighter and tighter. I can't get away.
No!
And he's choking me and I black out. And then I come to. I don't know how long had passed. At that moment, it was if I don't do anything about this, he's going to kill me. So I said to myself, and I'm not ready to die. I want to see my kids grow up. I want to have grandchildren. I did something about it. I tried to make everything normal so that he wouldn't suspect anything anything was wrong. Just wanted to get out of there, but not let him have any inclination of what I was doing. So I knew our washing machine was broke. So I came up with a plan to make him think that I was just going to do the laundry and no worries, no concern.
We'll get back a bit later, okay?
And then walked out the door. And then I called him. I told him I was not coming home. He said, you have 3 kids. Where are you going to go? Nobody wants you. I said, well, I ain't coming back. And I didn't. I filed for divorce. I took my rings off. I was all done. It was about a month later. Got all the kids together, put them in the car, and just down the street, Jim was in the middle of the road waiting for me. He came around to the driver's side.
Linda, please. I just want to talk.
You can't sneak up on me like this.
He said, just move over, move over. He just wanted to talk with me. And he pushed me on the passenger side.
Jim!
Just shut up.
What are you doing?
You did this to yourself.
What are you doing?
He drove the car into this field where there's not even a road. Just drove into a field. The kids were trying to get out of the car, and he told the kids to stay in the car or I'm gonna kill your mother. And so we got out of the car and we went off into the woods. I was afraid he was gonna kill me. He took and ripped my shirt, and he said, let me see your shoelaces. I didn't really know what he was gonna do with my shoelaces. I didn't know if he was gonna strangle me or, I had no idea. And then he tied my hands up. He forced himself on me and he choked me. I didn't think I was gonna make it out of there. Once he was done, I kept trying to convince him to let us go. Why don't you just go home? You can go home like nothing happened. I won't turn you in. He said, okay. And we went back to the car. I don't know how I did it, but I just remained really calm. I was staying strong to try to get out of the situation with my kids. And I went right to the police station. They called and said that he was going to be released soon. I thought he was going to try and find me. I got the restraining order because I didn't want him to come anywhere near me and the kids. I was just really concerned about having to look over my shoulder again and worried about if he was just lurking outside or who knows. Just on guard for a long time. And then nothing. It was just like dead silence. We didn't see him or hear from him or nothing. I didn't even know where he was. I had no idea.
Suddenly, a hand reached out and grabbed me by the throat. I literally was more scared then than I have ever been in my life. I was 36 when I met Jimmy. I met him on February 28th, 1994, and testified against him. I believe it was February 28th, 1997. I was out shopping. I noticed that he had been looking at me.
Hey, hi there. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No problem.
I just couldn't help but notice you inside the store.
You must like what you see.
Got to talking and started getting along. Seemed like a normal, regular guy, down to earth.
Do you mind if I help you with those?
Sure, why not?
He was a window installer, and I was a little bit of a wild child, and had some substance abuse issues. So I really wanted to get past that. I was looking for an escape. He seemed like a safe one.
I'm Terry.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
He encouraged me to go back to school. It was, for me, the beginning of living a normal life together. You know, he always acted like we would be together forever, and that's where I wanted to be. I actually was using him. Little did I know, I was the mouse in the lion's cage. I suspected he had been in jail because I had been in jail myself when I was younger. And there's just certain little habits that people pick up, a certain way you put things.
So you know you can trust me, right? I mean, it's not like I'm perfect.
I started teasing Jimmy that I said, come on, tell me where you were in jail. I know you were in jail. You know I was. Why wouldn't you tell me?
What do you want me to say?
Well, you know what I'm talking about.
That's when he told me he was on probation. That he had been in jail for a small domestic violence incident that was not his fault.
Why wouldn't you tell me?
I was afraid you'd leave me.
His ex-wife didn't like touching him and was very cold, and that she was so still during sex that he just wanted her to react. So he reached out and grabbed her by the throat. And I've seen it happen with dramatic women that they will take some little tiny thing that was an accident and turn it into a huge thing. So it was easily believable.
I just don't want you to think I'm a monster.
Baby, I know you're not a monster. And I know whatever you did, I know you couldn't have meant to hurt her. I know that.
Why wouldn't I believe him? I always went to sleep before Jimmy because he snored so badly. He'd wait for me to get good and asleep, and he would crawl in the bedroom on his belly and sneak his hand up over the side of the bed and pinch me or grab me, and it would just wake me up out of a dead sleep.
That's not a funny joke, Jim. Oh, my God.
I think he was practicing his stalking. I've never been in a relationship with a man who didn't have some little thing he liked to play, that didn't like to tease. But that just was very creepy, very creepy. One day I came home from work and I went in and took a long hot bath, and I walked in across the hall into my closet and was choosing something to wear to look cute for Jimmy, when suddenly a hand reached out and grabbed me by the throat. I literally was more scared then than I have ever been in my life. And I couldn't even see. Everything was happening so fast, and I just started hitting him in his shoulders and trying to hit his face. I thought some rapist had gotten into my house. And before I knew it, the man had me wrapped in his arms and was on the floor rocking and laughing, saying, "It's just me, baby. It's just me."
Don't worry.
Why did you do that?
Don't worry, baby. Don't worry. I'm just kidding around.
It was Jimmy. I was mad. And so I would, give him a few choice words and push him away from me and tell him to leave me the heck alone.
Don't you ever do that again.
Definitely there was something in him that was turned on by this. It was very strange feeling. And then it made me wonder, why does he enjoy this so much? This is really getting creepy.
Sorry.
He told me that, he'd like to pretend like he was choking his mate during sex, and he said it turned him on. He asked if he could pretend one time. I like my men to be turned on by me.
But just be easy, okay? It's not too rough.
Of course.
So, in the spirit of pleasing my man, I was willing to let him pretend to choke me, but it didn't turn out to be pretend so much. His eyes started going back and forth while he was choking me. It was almost like he was turning into a different person. It was horrifying. He was bearing down on my throat, and he wasn't stopping. He was bearing down on my throat, and he wasn't stopping. It was like he wasn't there. It was like something else controlling him. And I hit him in the head, my knuckles, as hard as I could, 10, 15 times. Stop, stop, stop. I couldn't talk.
Sorry.
Once I got him back away, he finally just kind of snapped out of it. And then he was back. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just playing. Are you okay? No, I'm not okay. I stood up for myself and just told him no. No, you can't do that. I'm not into this. I don't like it. Oh, okay, we don't have to do it. And he never did it again. His sexual desires were not to my liking, and so he quit. So we were fine.
Did you see this?
No, what?
This is a really interesting article.
There was a serial killer on the streets killing women. Every morning, Jimmy waited on the paper, and then he would read a lot of it out loud to me. Officials wonder if killings are linked. The recent discovery of a slender, dark-haired woman's body, nude, and left beside a North Pinellas road has prompted authorities to consider a similar scene from about a month ago. Everybody was reading about the story in the paper. He seemed to be extra fascinated with it.
What do you think they got on this guy?
Not much, unfortunately.
He was interested to know if they were getting close to finding the killer. His attitude was they were just prostitutes. They knew what kind of life they were living. They knew the danger. And they were out there for the picking. Every time he would read the paper and read a new one, he would look at me and say, "Damn good enough for him, huh, girl?" He would use alcohol on his hands, his arms. He was so meticulous about his fingernails and his hands and making sure they were clean and nothing was under them. I noticed that he would shave his arms. He was very meticulous about shaving his arms. I just didn't know where to put that in my mind. He said the hair on his arms bothered him, and I found it odd, but people are quirky. People are quirky. He was very meticulous about cleaning the outside of his truck. It was just a good old work truck. And so it would get smudges on it. And he said alcohol was the only thing that got it off, so that's what he used. And I found that odd, but, you know, I pinched it and helped. And one time I was helping clean it, and there were some spots that didn't look like paint drops that were dark. And he had a tarp in the back of it, and he threw it away. It was a good tarp.
Can't we just spray that down?
I'd rather just get a new one. They're so cheap.
You're painting, you're working on windows, you don't want to have to pick up all the chips. So that was perfectly normal that he would buy tarps. But I did find it slightly odd that he bought some mayo. He just said he didn't like them dirty. He was always buying tarps. We went to bed together.
Hey, babe.
And I noticed scratches on both sides of his back.
You were all scratched up.
Am I?
Yeah, like all over your back.
And I knew that they were fingernail scratches. When I asked him, "What happened to your back, babe?" he said, "Oh, I was working under a window with a lot of branches." I knew that they were not scratches from a bush, as he had said. I knew that they were women's fingernail scratches. I didn't push him on it because I really didn't want to know. I just said, "Yeah, okay." And he made sure I didn't see him again. But I know there were fingernail scratches. I know there were. There's times in your life you can feel evil just tingling around you. And for a moment, I felt that. And I'm thinking, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. I gotta get out. I gotta get out. I was in class for business administration at P-Tech. That's where I was the day they picked me up.
Are you Terry Jo Howard?
Homicide detectives just came into the classroom and said, "You have to come with us." And I just felt a horrible feeling come over me. My family's okay, right?
What happened?
Yes, everything's fine. You have to come with us.
We'll tell you everything at the station.
No matter how many questions I asked, they wouldn't tell me anything. They took me over to the sheriff's office, and that's where they told me Jimmy was responsible for all the women who had been murdered in the area. They took me over to the sheriff's office, and they just started throwing pictures of dead women in front of me. And that's where they told me Jimmy was responsible for all the women who had been murdered in the area. It just was so overwhelming. It's just like having someone reach inside of your chest and rip your heart rate out of it. You're in so much shock. At some point, it's hard to even feel. I started having memories and little oddities coming back to me, and I just knew that the chokings, meticulously cleaning his nails, and then the scratches, everything. More than once, he had given me jewelry that he said he found. This is a broken part of a piece of jewelry that he brought home. I'm certain this is one of his trophies. That's why I gave it to the detectives. This poor woman was cut short in the middle of her journey. Whoever it was, I know what she went through in the end, because he did it to me. It makes me feel more in touch with it, and I don't like it. Please take it back.
Seeing the women's families that were there was just heartbreaking. We see our kids don't have a mother, and they're gone forever. Really broke my heart.
This is a picture of Jimmy in court. Jimmy never moved or spoke during the trial. I think the only witness he looked at was me. I just gripped my jaw and stared right back. It's the last time I saw him. He was walking out of the courtroom in cuffs. And he just turned and smiled and winked at me. And the way he had been staring at me previously was not a pleasant stare. It was like, you're the one I should have killed. I should have got you.
Knowing he was in prison for the rest of his life, without parole, knowing that he wouldn't be able to hurt anyone else was just amazing. I'm so lucky that I got out of being with him. I would have been dead. I mean, I had no doubt about that I would have been killed. It's affected my family a lot. It still affects my family to this day. I mean, just it never ends. It's always going on. It's 34 years. But I was not going to let him ruin my life. I'm married to a wonderful guy now, and he's so caring and loving and patient. I turned over a new leaf and started a new life. And that's the way I'm moving forward. I'm not going back. I'm moving forward.
For all of us, it was a true horror story. And we were all living it. We were all touched by evil. I do not think that 2 life consecutive sentences were enough for him. This man deserves to die. He got pleasure in killing others. He knew what he was doing.
It starts with a sound that doesn't belong in the middle of the night. A single, sharp chime cutting through the hum of fluorescent lights and distant air conditioning. On a dark computer monitor in a Florida crime lab, a small window flashes into life. 1 line of text. 1 new notification from a national database that almost never delivers miracles. Possible DNA match detected. Florida 1998 cold case. A technician blinks at the screen, leans closer, and for a second the whole thing looks like a glitch. The case number is old, buried under 2 decades of dust and disappointment. The system shouldn't be thinking about it. The detectives who worked it are retired, transferred, dead, or trying very hard to forget. But the cursor keeps blinking under that same phrase. Possible match. Confirm view? Across town, the city is sleeping. Streetlights stain the asphalt in a washed-out yellow. Late-night traffic rolls past strip malls and forgotten billboards. Behind shuttered windows, a coastal community has no idea that the story it thought was over, the nightmare it learned to live with, is quietly waking up again in a room that smells like coffee, paper, and bleach. In that cold light, the technician clicks yes. To understand why that click matters, you have to go back to the summer of 1998. Back to the heat that pressed down like a punishment. Back to a small Florida town whose name barely registered on state maps, a place of palm trees, convenience stores, and quiet neighborhoods where people left their doors unlocked and their bikes lying on the front lawn. A place that would soon be branded by 3 words spoken on every local newscast: Unsolved Florida Cold Case. It began like so many stories that never think they're about to become headlines. A Friday afternoon. High school let out early. Kids spilled into parking lots, into fast food booths, into the back seats of rusted cars with peeling paint and loud stereos. The air was heavy with cut grass and gasoline. Somewhere in that noise and sun and adolescent rush was a 17-year-old girl who thought she still had time. Time to grow up. Time to leave. Time to decide who she wanted to be. Her name would later be spoken like a prayer and a warning, replayed on anniversary specials and late-night reruns. But in that moment, she was just another teenager with sunburned shoulders and a backpack slapped over one arm. Security camera footage, grainy, distorted, forever looped by news stations, would capture her leaving a small grocery store at 5:42 p.m., pushing open a smudged glass door, stepping out into the fading light, the open sign buzzing behind her. That would be the last confirmed image of her alive. At first, no one panicked. Why would they? It was Florida in the late 90s. Kids came home late all the time. They hung around the pier, the arcade, someone's backyard pool. They borrowed each other's clothes, each other's cars, each other's time. When she didn't show up for dinner, her mother called a few friends, checked a few places, paced the kitchen with a phone pressed too hard into her hand. She's probably with someone, people said. She'll turn up. That was the lie the community told itself before the real terror set in. By midnight, the house felt wrong. Too quiet. A bedroom untouched. A bed still made. The car still parked in the driveway. No note. No message. No fight. Just an absence that started small and expanded like a crack in glass. At 12:37 a.m., her mother made the call that would change everything. A shaking voice to a dispatcher who had heard all kinds of fear but could still recognize the particular pitch of a parent stepping off the edge of normal life into something they didn't understand. "My daughter's missing," she said. "This isn't like her. Something's wrong." Officers arrived with notebooks and practiced calm. They asked the usual questions. When was she last seen? Who was she with? Any reason she might run away? They checked her room, her closet, the trash, the driveway. They looked for signs of anger, rebellion, secrets. In the first hours, a missing teenager is a story that still wants to be rational. Kids fight. Kids hide. Kids cool off. It took just one night for that narrative to collapse. The next morning, her photo was everywhere. On fax sheets pinned to bulletin boards, taped to convenience store counters, shoved into the hands of gas station clerks. 17. Brown hair. Brown eyes. Last seen wearing a white tank top and cut-off shorts. The local news cut into regular programming with a breaking banner. Mysterious disappearance in coastal Florida town, the anchor read, her voice sober but still routine. They didn't know yet that this wouldn't be just another missing persons segment. That this would become a permanent word tied to their community, cold case. The search began at dawn and spread like a fever. Volunteers formed lines through fields and ditches, through sawgrass and scrub. Boats combed the canals and retention ponds. Deputies pounded on doors, walked through backyards, checked old sheds and empty lots. Helicopters hovered overhead, broadcasting aerial shots that made the town look small and exposed. The camera panned from the high school's faded bleachers to the grocery store parking lot where she was last seen. Yellow tape fluttered in the heat like a warning too late to be useful. Inside a cramped incident command trailer, detectives set up maps and timelines. There was the last phone call she made from a payphone outside the store. There was the friend who said she was supposed to come over and never did. There was the half-hour gap between the time she left the store and the moment her mother expected to hear the front door open. 30 minutes. An entire life swallowed in that missing, ordinary half-hour. Tips flooded in. Sightings. Rumors. People who swore they'd seen her at gas stations, at malls, hitchhiking on the highway. Every cold case begins as a hot one, burning through manpower and hope. Detectives chased shadows, chased plates, chased stories that fell apart under simple questions. A neighbor heard a scream. A store clerk remembered a man standing too close. A classmate mentioned a fight with a boyfriend that no one else could confirm. Then came the discovery in a drainage ditch just off a service road outside town. Not a body. Not yet. Just a shoe. White canvas, soaked and stained, stuck in the mud beside crushed reeds. The brand and size matched. Her mother, when shown the photograph, folded in on herself like something inside her had finally snapped. The shoe was bagged, logged, sent to the lab, another piece on the board. Still no answers. Still no body. Media headlines sharpened. Florida teen vanishes, one read. Trail of clues leads nowhere, said another. The town was no longer just a place. It was a story. Days turned into weeks. The search scaled down, then back up, then down again. Press conferences grew shorter and more strained. The sheriff stood in front of microphones and said they were following every lead. He promised they would not rest. He told the cameras they needed the public's help. Behind the scenes, exhaustion crept in. Walls that had once been covered in fresh printouts began to yellow at the edges. Faces blurred. Dates blurred. The case file thickened, but not in the way that meant progress. Then, finally, remains were found. A hunter, off-season, stepping through a patch of scrub pine miles from town, saw something half-buried near a cluster of palmettos. At first, he thought it was animal bones. Florida has plenty of those. But something about the shape, the arrangement, the scrap of fabric still clinging stubbornly to a fragment of bone, made his skin crawl. He called it in. Deputies arrived. The site was secured. Crime scene tape went up once more, this time around a small clearing that would haunt every officer who walked into it. Forensic teams worked in silence, collecting, measuring, photographing. The heat pressed down, relentless, as they pulled pieces of a life from the sandy soil. A necklace chain, knotted and tarnished. Fragments of clothing. A small ring with a missing stone. Later, dental records would confirm what everyone already knew but didn't want to hear. The missing girl from the grocery store parking lot was no longer missing. She was a homicide victim. The anonymous bones in the clearing now had a name. The town went from hope to mourning in one brutal press conference. The sheriff's voice caught once, just once, when he read her name and the word confirmed. Reporters nodded grimly, pens scratching. Cameras zoomed in on the mother's face as she clutched a crumpled tissue, as neighbors put hands on her shoulders, as the community tried to understand how something like this could happen here. Not in a city. Not in some faraway headline. Here, where the streets were familiar and the nights were supposed to be safe. The investigation shifted from missing to murder. They combed the clearing for trace evidence. Soil samples. Insects. Fibers. They collected what they could in the late 90s, when forensic science was powerful but not yet what it would become. They took scrapings, swabs, and samples they didn't fully know how to use yet, because good detectives think of the future. Somewhere, one of them made a decision that would matter 27 years later. "Take everything," he said. "We might need it one day." Suspects emerged and dissolved. There was the ex-boyfriend with the temper. The coworker who left town suddenly. The stranger rumored to drive past the school in a rusted truck every afternoon. Each one became the center of whispered stories, of knowing looks exchanged over grocery carts, of late-night conversations on porches. Deputies knocked on doors, took statements, collected alibis that felt too neat or too rehearsed. But nothing stuck. Nothing fit every piece. There was no confession. No smoking gun. Only questions. The media turned harsher. Florida 1998 murder mystery, one station branded it. Small town gripped by fear, killer still at large. Parents kept their kids closer. People locked their doors for the first time. The girl's photo, now framed in black on the news, became a symbol of everything that could go wrong in a life that had seemed so ordinary. The word "still unsolved" became a constant, a painful refrain after every update. Months passed. Then years. The file thickened, then settled. New crimes arrived. New priorities. Detectives transferred, retired, died. The case changed hands, then changed shelves. It moved from the front of the cabinet to the back, into the section with a quiet, devastating label, "Cold Case." Her mother became a regular face at the sheriff's office, at vigils, at local news interviews, marking another year without answers. "I just want to know who," she would say into microphones. "I want to look at the person and know they didn't just disappear like she did." Time moved on, brutally indifferent. The town grew. New people moved in, knowing nothing of the girl in the grocery store footage. New kids walked through the same doors, under the same buzzing open sign, never knowing they were stepping through a ghost story. The drainage ditch was cleared, the clearing overgrown, the posters long since peeled away from their telephone poles. But in a lab freezer, in labeled vials and sealed envelopes, pieces of that summer waited. Blood. Bone. Fibers. Evidence that refused to rot, refused to forget. Back in the present, in that bright, humming crime lab, the technician stares at the blinking notification on the screen. Over the years, the old evidence from the Florida 1998 cold case had been quietly reprocessed, resubmitted, re-entered into new systems with better eyes. Short tandem repeat profiles. National DNA indexes. Technology that didn't exist when the girl disappeared. The samples had gone in without fanfare, just another effort in a department committed to closing doors that had been left open too long. Tonight, that effort spits out a result. Possible DNA match detected. The technician's heart picks up speed. They click through the layers of warnings and confirmations, through the legal disclaimers and system prompts, until the match appears on the screen. A name. A profile. A hit linked to a recent entry from hundreds of miles away. Fingerprints had once failed them. Alibis had once fooled them. Witnesses had once lied or forgotten. But DNA doesn't care about lies, or distance, or time. One profile meets another, and the system lights up like a flare in the dark. In a town that has spent 27 years haunted by a single question, who, the answer is suddenly sitting in front of a night shift technician whose coffee has gone cold. The system has spoken. The Florida 1998 cold case is no longer just a headline from a forgotten summer. It has a new line now. New words forming in the mind of every investigator who will see this screen before morning. Cold case solved. DNA match. And whoever thought they had escaped the summer of 1998 is about to learn that the past, when it's bottled and frozen in tiny labeled tubes, can still find its way back with a single electronic chime in the middle of the night. The technician doesn't scream, doesn't run down the hallway, doesn't do any of the things TV shows promise. They just sit there for a long second, staring at the name on the screen, listening to their own pulse in their ears. The hum of the refrigeration units grows louder. The cursor blinks under the word match like it's waiting for somebody to argue. No one does. Instead, the technician reaches for the phone. In a small house on the edge of town, a cell phone vibrates on a nightstand. A middle-aged detective, sleeping in the shallow way cops learn to sleep, rolls toward the glow. She squints at the caller ID, sees the lab's extension, and in that instant her body knows what her brain hasn't caught up to yet. The lab doesn't call at this hour for good news. The lab doesn't call at this hour for anything ordinary. Ruiz, she answers, voice rough. Detective, it's Monroe at the DNA unit. You need to come in. She glances at the digital clock, 2:13 a.m., and swings her legs out of bed. What's going on? There's a pause, the kind where you can hear paperwork being moved, someone swallowing hard. We've got a hit, Monroe says. On the 1998 Florida cold case. The girl from Palmetto Creek. That name cuts through her sleep like broken glass. Palmetto Creek. A file she'd pulled herself off the shelf 2 years ago when they formed the cold case unit. A case she'd stayed late for, read until the words blurred, imagined until the girl's face followed her home and into her dreams. A case that had looked back at her with empty eyes and said, quietly, I'm not going to give you anything. Say that again, Ruiz whispers. The Carter case. We ran the last batch of samples through Cody's. Got a match. You need to see this. The phone call ends, and the night snaps into motion. Clothes yanked on. Holster clipped. Keys grabbed off the counter next to a stack of unsorted mail and a half-eaten takeout container. The drive through the sleeping city feels unreal, headlights carving tunnels through deserted streets. Ruiz's thoughts flicker between the past and the present, between a grainy photo of a 17-year-old girl and the sterile text of a database hit. At the lab, the air is colder than outside. Fluorescent lights flatten everything. The technician meets her at the secured door with eyes wide and a half-empty styrofoam cup in hand. "Tell me it's not a false positive," Ruiz says as she signs in. "I checked the parameters twice. It's clean. You'll want to sit down." She doesn't. She stands leaning over the tech's shoulder as the screen comes alive, case numbers, alleles, bar graphs, digital readouts that mean everything and nothing until they resolve into a conclusion. At the top, in bold, the original entry, unidentified male DNA profile, evidence item 4B, Carter homicide 1998. Below it, in a different color, a new entry. A name. A corresponding profile. 100% match. Ruiz stares. The suspect's name looks wrong in that context, like it's been pasted onto the wrong page of a book. A name she recognizes, not from a list of offenders, not from a rap sheet, but from somewhere else entirely. She reaches into the deep drawer of her memory and pulls out an old interview, an old report, an old line. "You've got to be kidding me," she says. "He's in the system from an out-of-state arrest last year," Monroe explains, words tumbling now that someone else is sharing the weight. "Minor charge, but they took his DNA. It hit our backlog run tonight." Ruiz forces herself to focus. "Walk me through it. Chain of custody. How sure are we?" Sample came from the victim's clothing. Preserved, sealed, cataloged. We retested before we ran it. Same profile as the one generated in '99. The new sample from him? Different lab, different state, same profile. This isn't a contamination issue. It's him. The name on the screen doesn't change. A single individual, flagged now in a way he never was before. A man who, on paper, was once just neighbor, volunteer, helpful witness. A man whose statements are buried on page 46 of the case file, casual and unremarkable. Saw nothing, heard nothing, just wanted to help. On the yellowing cover of the Carter file, her name is underlined twice, Rachel Lynn Carter, F/17. DOA. Ruiz had traced that name with her finger once, alone in her office, promising a stranger she'd never known that she wouldn't let the file just sit there. On that same page, a list of persons interviewed. And there it is, in faded pen, Daniel Kincaid, M/24, neighbor, statement taken. Now, in stark digital font on the monitor, the same name glows back at her beneath the word match. The room feels smaller. The humming equipment sounds louder. For a moment, Ruiz isn't in the lab anymore. She's in 1998, in the cul-de-sac outside the Carter home, even though she wasn't actually there. Her mind fills in details from reports and photos as if she remembers it firsthand, the swarm of uniforms, the camera flashes, the neighbors clustered on lawns in shorts and sandals, craning their necks to see. Somewhere in that crowd, a young man with his arms crossed, a look of concerned curiosity on his face, answering questions, offering coffee, asking if they've found anything yet. Kincaid. The name had barely registered back then. Just one of many. Alibied by a time card from his job at an auto shop. Described by officers as cooperative, maybe a little shy. No prior record. No obvious motive. He gave a statement, shook hands, faded into the background of the narrative like so many others. But DNA doesn't care if you seemed polite 27 years ago. The next few hours move with a strange double speed, fast and slow at the same time. Confirmation calls. Notifications up the chain of command. A sleepy lieutenant pulling on a shirt and tie, walking into the lab with his hair still damp, staring at the printouts. A prosecutor's voice over speakerphone, asking cautious questions about sample integrity, about contamination, about the defense's future arguments. Everyone is excited, but the excitement is measured, edged with fear. Because a hit like this is a gift and a curse. It breathes life into a dead case, but it also paints a target on every decision they make from here on out. We're not losing this, Ruiz says, more to herself than to anyone else. Not after this long. Then we do it by the book, the lieutenant replies. Twice. They pull the Carter file out of storage, heave it onto a table like a stone slab. Paper rustles. Tabs bend. Pages whisper as they're turned. There she is, Rachel, smiling awkwardly from a school photo stapled to the inside cover, hair pulled back, eyes bright. There are the early reports, the initial canvases, the search grid maps. There's the medical examiner's summary, clinical and cruel. Blunt force trauma. Evidence of struggle. DNA recovered. On a later page, Kincaid's original statement in neat, blue ink. I was home alone. I heard the sirens later. I didn't know what was happening until I saw it on the news. She was a nice girl. Quiet. Always waved. Now his printout sits on top of that page like an accusation. Current address in another state. Age 51. A life lived in the decades since, jobs, addresses, a couple of minor traffic tickets, one misdemeanor that finally put his DNA into the system. Married, then divorced. No kids listed. Nothing that screams monster, nothing that screams murderer. Just a man who seems to have drifted through the years without leaving much of a mark. That's what gets me, Monroe says quietly, staring at the sheet. They just go on. While the families he doesn't finish. Ruiz looks at Rachel's photo, then at Kincaid's DMV snapshot from a few years back. Age has softened his jawline, threaded gray into his dark hair. He's the kind of face you'd forget after 2 minutes in a grocery store aisle. Ordinary. Unremarkable. Background noise. The kind of face that, in a small town, you don't think twice about as your daughter walks past him. They assemble a plan in the flickering hours before dawn. First, verify the hit with an independent lab. Second, quietly pull everything they can on Kincaid, old addresses in Palmetto Creek, former coworkers, landlords, anyone who knew him then and now. Third, coordinate with law enforcement in his current state for a discreet approach. No leaks. No media. Not yet. A 27-year-old cold case can hold a little longer. They're not going to blow this on a premature arrest driven by adrenaline and a headline. Outside, the sky is beginning to pale, that thin gray blue that comes before sunrise in Florida, when the world feels fragile, not fully awake. Ruiz watches it through a narrow lab window and thinks about the Carter family, about a mother who still calls on anniversaries, who still leaves messages on machines, whose voice gets a little thinner every year but never loses that hard edge of need. What do you tell someone like that? After decades of nothing, what words can carry the weight of we might finally have him? Not yet, she decides. Not until they're certain. Not until there's a pair of handcuffs, a booking photo, a charge. Hope is a dangerous thing to hand someone who's already broken. By mid-morning, cross-jurisdictional calls have been made. Officers in another state are briefed. Kincaid's house is located, small, one-story, in a quiet subdivision with tidy lawns and mailboxes shaped like little barns. He works at a parts warehouse. He keeps to himself. He's not on anyone's radar as anything other than a guy who shows up on time and goes home alone. Ruiz boards a plane with a younger detective in tow, a digital copy of the file on a secure tablet and a hard copy in her carry-on. The hum of the engines fills the spaces between her thoughts. She closes her eyes and sees the map of Palmetto Creek from '98, the lines drawn around the last known locations, the red X where Rachel's body was found. She overlays that with the timeline of Kincaid's movements from old employment records, rental leases, credit card receipts. The gaps are suspicious. The overlaps are worse. You think he did it? The younger detective asks quietly. I think his DNA was on her clothes, she replies. Whatever else I think doesn't matter yet. Could be a mistake. Transfer. A lab error back then. She shakes her head. Could be. But we treat it like the truth until someone proves otherwise. On the ground hours later, they drive past unfamiliar strip malls and chain restaurants that all look the same, turning eventually into a residential cut-through where kids' bikes lie in front yards and an inflatable seasonal decoration sags in the heat. When they pull up across from Kincaid's address, the house doesn't look like the kind of place that holds the answer to a 27-year-old murder. It looks like the kind of place where someone watches sports alone and forgets to bring in the trash can. They don't go knocking right away. They sit. They watch. Patience is another kind of weapon in a cold case. If he did this, he's lived with the idea that he got away with it for more than half his life. 30 extra Christmases. 30 extra birthdays. 1,000 simple, ordinary mornings where he walked out his front door and never looked over his shoulder. Today is just another morning to him. For now. Target leaving the house, one of the local officers murmurs from the passenger seat, binoculars raised. Ruiz sees him step out, older, thicker around the middle, in a faded work shirt with a company logo stitched above the pocket. He locks his door without thinking, glances once up and down the street, then walks toward an aging sedan parked in the driveway. There's nothing remarkable in the motion, nothing cinematic. Just a man starting his day. And that, more than the DNA readout or the glowing match on a monitor, is what sends a chill down her spine. Because as she watches Daniel Kincaid fumble for his keys and slide behind the wheel, she's struck by a simple, brutal thought: this is what a monster looks like after 27 years of being invisible. Absolutely ordinary. And if the science is right, if the tubes and charts and blinking cursors have finally done what witnesses and tips never could, then the men and women who once stood over a 17-year-old girl's body in a clearing outside Palmetto Creek are about to get something they'd stopped believing in a long time ago. A chance to look the past in the face and say, "We found you." They don't grab him in the driveway. No guns drawn, no shouted commands, no neighbors filming through curtains. A 27-year-old cold case doesn't need a dramatic takedown. It needs control. It needs silence. It needs him to walk into their world believing he still has choices. So they let him drive away. 2 unmarked cars roll out behind him, hanging back just far enough to blend into traffic. The radio chatter is low, professional, almost bored. Plate confirmed. Route confirmed. Destination confirmed. He does what he does every weekday morning, drives the same streets, turns into the same industrial park, pulls into the same cracked parking lot outside the parts warehouse where he's been punching a clock for years. He gets out of the car with the unthinking rhythm of routine. Lock. Pocket. Check phone. Start walking toward the employee entrance, head down, shoulders rounded, the posture of a man who expects nothing more from the day than fluorescent lights and stacked cardboard. Now, Ruiz says. The sedan doors open in sequence. Badges flash in the hazy light. The local detective, Parker, mid-40s, built like an ex-linebacker, moves in first, casual but direct. Mr. Kincaid? He turns, keys still in his hand. Up close, he looks even more ordinary. The lines in his face are deeper than in the DMV photo. His eyes are a washed-out blue that never quite land on one spot for too long. He takes in the badges, the unmarked car, the way the entrance suddenly feels a lot farther away. Yeah, he says. That's me. I'm Detective Parker, this is Detective Ruiz, the cop says, gesturing. We're following up on an old matter. Mind if we talk for a few minutes? Kincaid's gaze flicks to Ruiz, catches on the slight difference in her accent, the way she's studying him like he's not just a man in a parking lot but a question being answered in real time. "What's this about?" he asks. "Nothing you're in trouble over," Parker says smoothly. "We're working with another agency, trying to put some old files to bed. You used to live in Florida, right? Palmetto Creek? We're just trying to clear up a few things from back then. Would really help us out." The words are chosen carefully. Old files. Put to bed. Help us out. No mention of murder. No mention of 17-year-old girls or drainage ditches or the word homicide stamped in red across a report. Not yet. Kincaid shifts his weight. Looks at the warehouse door. Looks at their badges again. "I'm supposed to be at work," he says. "We already spoke to your supervisor." Ruiz lies without blinking. He understands. "This shouldn't take long. You're not under arrest. You're free to say no. But it would mean a lot. Free to say no." The phrase hangs in the air like bait. He hesitates, long enough for a flare of hope to spark in Ruiz's chest, hope that he'll show his nerves, give them something now. But then the other side of him, the side that's lived decades pretending to be just another man in a long line of them, seems to win. "Yeah, okay," he says. "Sure. I can talk." They put him in the front seat, not the back. No cuffs. No dramatics. The drive to the local station is short. The conversation is shorter. He answers basic questions about how long he's been here, what he does. He doesn't ask where Ruiz is from. Maybe he doesn't want to know. Maybe he already suspects. Inside the station, they walk him down a hallway that smells faintly of coffee, sweat, and disinfectant. Past framed commendations. Past a bulletin board with faded flyers. Past a heavy door with no windows. Parker pushes it open with his shoulder, gesturing him through. The room is standard issue. Square, bland, claustrophobic. One table bolted to the floor. 3 chairs. A camera puck mounted in the corner of the ceiling, its tiny light off for now. No two-way mirror, just dull gray paint that reflects nothing back. "Have a seat," Parker says. "You want water? Coffee?" Kincaid sits, fingers laced on the table. "Water's fine," he says. He doesn't look like a man about to be confronted with the worst thing he's ever done. He looks like a guy called into HR about a timesheet discrepancy. Tired more than scared. Mildly annoyed. Curious. Ruiz watches him through the open doorway as Parker brings in a plastic cup, sets it down with a little too much care. She takes a breath, feels the weight of the decades settle across her shoulders like an invisible vest. Then she steps inside and closes the door behind her with a soft click that sounds louder than it should. "Mr. Kincaid, I'm Detective Ruiz," she says, sliding into the chair across from him. "Like my partner said, I'm here from another state. Just want to ask you some questions about a place you used to live." He nods, eyes briefly touching on the lanyard around her neck, the small Florida seal on her ID. "You from down there?" he asks. "I am," she says. "You miss it?" He gives a half shrug. "Sometimes. Too hot, though." "Yeah," she says. "It is." There's a beat where the only sound in the room is the faint buzz of the overhead lights. She thinks about all the rooms like this he's never had to sit in, all the interviews he's never had to endure, all the nights he's never had to spend listening to steel doors close. Somewhere, far away, there's a cemetery with a marker bearing Rachel's name. Somewhere, in a quiet house, her mother is rinsing a coffee cup in a sink that's seen 27 years of mornings without her. Ruiz flips open a thin notebook, more for effect than necessity. You lived in Palmetto Creek in 1998, she says. That right? Yeah, he answers. For a few years. Long time ago. What brought you there? Work. Shop job. Friend of mine knew a guy who knew a guy. You know how it is. How'd you like it? He smiles faintly, a flash of nostalgia that might be genuine. Small town. Quiet. Everybody knew everybody. Could fish before work, some days. Not like here. Do you remember your neighbors? She asks. The street you lived on? He thinks, squinting at a point somewhere over her shoulder, trying to rewind his own life. Some, he says. Been a while. There was an older couple on one side. Guy with a boat on the other. Kids on bikes everywhere. Why? You remember the family across from you? She prompts. Small house, blue shutters, teenage girl. Carter family. The name lands between them like something heavy dropped into shallow water. The ripples are small but they're there. His eyes twitch. His fingers, laced together, tighten. A pulse beats a little harder at his neck. None of it dramatic. None of it enough to stand up on paper. But to someone who's spent years reading the way people lie, it might as well be a flare. He says. Yeah. I think so. The girl who yeah. He clears his throat. It was a long time ago. Ruiz doesn't look away. What do you remember about her? He shrugs too quickly. Not much. Saw her around. Going to school. Getting the mail. Typical kid. She ever talk to you? Maybe. I don't know. Just hi and stuff. Nothing big. He takes a sip of water. His hand isn't shaking, but it's not steady either. He puts the cup down a little harder than necessary. Plastic flexes. Tiny droplets leap to the surface and cling there. Do you remember when she went missing? Ruiz asks. This time, his smile is tighter. Everybody remembers that. Whole town went crazy. Cops everywhere. News vans. I was late to work one day 'cause the road was blocked off. You were interviewed, she says. By sheriff's deputies. He frowns like he's digging through layers of dust. Maybe. I talked to a lot of people back then. They were asking everyone questions. She nods. You told them you didn't see anything. Didn't know anything. You stood on your lawn and watched the patrol cars roll past. If that's what the report says, he mutters. Like I said, long time ago. Silence creeps in again, heavier now. The air in the room feels thicker. The hum of the fluorescent light is suddenly loud enough to vibrate behind her eyes. She lets it stretch just a little too long before she breaks it. Mr. Kincaid, she says slowly, you mind if I ask you something a little more personal? He glances up, wary. Depends what it is. You ever given a DNA sample before? That hits harder than the girl's name. Not big, not theatrical. But there. A flash of something that might be fear, might be anger, might just be the realization that he's not in a casual nostalgia interview anymore. His tongue darts over his lower lip. His fingers unlatch, relatch. Why? He asks. Because we're going through some old cases, she says, voice level. Pulling old evidence, running it through new systems. You know how it is these days, science moves fast. We've got some profiles from back then. We're asking people who lived in that neighborhood if they'll give us a voluntary swab. Helps us eliminate folks, make sure we're not chasing ghosts. Clears your name, clears your file. It's the quickest way to rule you out of anything. He stares at her like the tables moved 2 inches closer without him noticing. So I'm a suspect now, he says. 20-something years later? For what, being a neighbor? You're not under arrest, she repeats. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. But I'm going to be straight with you. We found male DNA on Rachel Carter's clothing. We're trying to identify whose it is. Anyone who lived on that street and was in her orbit? We want to be able to cross their names off the list. She lets the word DNA sit there, sharp and surgical. In his world, maybe it's just something from TV, from cop shows and true crime specials he flips past. In hers, it's a hammer. He leans back, exhaling hard. His eyes flick to the door, to the corners of the ceiling, searching for the camera he can't see. For a moment, she wonders if he's going to stand up and walk out. He can. Legally, he can. But even if he does, they still have the Cody's hit. They still have the match. This is about something else. About watching him choose. What happens if I say no? He asks. Then you say no, she answers. We note it. We keep working the case. We talk to other people. We may come back with a warrant if a judge thinks we have enough probable cause later. But like I said, voluntary makes everyone's life easier. He hears the word warrant like a distant thunder. Not here yet. Coming. He licks his lips again. Looks down at his hands. When he speaks, his voice is softer. You think I hurt that girl? He mumbles. I think, she says carefully, that something terrible happened to her. I think whoever did it has had 27 years of life she never got. I think if you had nothing to do with it, you should want that person found as much as we do. It's almost true. Almost. Because if he had nothing to do with it, his DNA wouldn't have lit up her screen in the middle of the night like a warning siren. But she doesn't say that. Not yet. She watches the conflict play across his face, pride, fear, defensiveness, calculation. The knowledge that saying yes feels like surrender. The knowledge that saying no looks like guilt. Finally, he nods once, like he's making a decision about something smaller than it is. About a cable bill. About a car repair. Fine, he says. Take your damn test. The room seems to exhale. Parker steps in with a swab kit like he'd been waiting just outside the door. The sterile plastic crinkles as he tears it open. The whole thing is absurdly simple. No needles, no blood. Just a cotton-tipped stick in a small tube with a label already printed with Kincaid, Daniel in machine-perfect letters. Open your mouth, Parker says, trying not to sound like a dentist. Kincaid does. The swab slides along the inside of his cheek, scraping cells that carry the history of everything he is, everything he's done, everywhere he's been. 20 seconds. That's all. 20 seconds and a twist of the wrist and a soft click as the stick breaks off into the vial, sealed tight. In the logbooks it will be just another entry. Date, time, sample ID, collecting officer's name. In the cold case file, it will be a second anchor, hammering the match into place. In the narrative of Rachel Carter's life, it might be the moment the story finally starts to tilt. Thank you, Ruiz says, meaning it more than he knows. He rubs his cheek with the back of his hand, scowling. We done? Almost, she says. Just a few more questions, since we've got you here. His shoulders slump. Resignation, not fear. He thinks the worst part is over. He thinks the little tube on the table is just bureaucratic nonsense, another government box checked. Ruiz stands, the vial balanced between two fingers like something fragile and explosive. She walks to the door, opens it. The hallway feels cooler. Brighter. She flags down a waiting officer, hands over the sample with a chain of custody form that's been filled out down to the last line. Straight to the lab, she says. Rush. I want prelims yesterday. You really think you need it? The officer asks under his breath. Cody's hit was solid. I want it twice, she replies. Once for the system, once for the jury. He nods and walks away, the tiny tube in his palm carrying 27 years of questions and, maybe, the start of an answer. Somewhere down the line, machines will whir, computers will blink, and numbers will line up in columns that either slam the door shut or crack it wider. Back in the room, Kincaid sits alone for a moment, staring at the empty doorway. The plastic cup of water sweats on the tabletop. A tiny ring of moisture spreads under it, slow and inevitable. He taps his fingers once, twice, then folds his hands again like he's back in church. The camera puck in the corner, now quietly recording, watches him swallow hard, watches his gaze bounce around the walls like he's suddenly aware of how small they are. How close. How inescapable. On the far side of the country, the mother of a girl who never came home is standing at her sink, rinsing another coffee cup she doesn't really want. She doesn't know that a man she doesn't remember has just opened his mouth for a swab that could rewrite the rest of her life. She doesn't know that a phrase she's repeated for almost 3 decades, no answers, no closure, no one arrested, has finally begun to fray. In a Florida evidence locker, an old envelope sits in a cold drawer, edges worn, label smudged. Inside, sealed in age-stiff plastic, are fibers and fragments and microscopic traces of a summer night. Their story has been frozen for years. It's about to be translated into the only language that never forgets. A series of tubes, a handful of numbers, a name on a screen. Florida 1998 cold case. Suspect swabbed. DNA match waiting to be confirmed. The tube travels quietly, sealed and escorted through hallways, past layers of security and silence. It doesn't look like much, a plastic capsule, barely the size of a finger, but inside it sits a fragment of truth that could shatter 27 years of forgetting. A courier signs it out, places it into a padded case, and walks it to the waiting car. The sun is up now, bright and indifferent. The city hums awake around them, unaware that inside the small container might be the end of a story everyone thought had died in 1998. In the lab, the process begins again. Gloves, masks, precision. Machines hum with mechanical patience. Samples are logged, scanned, and labeled. One marked reference, Kincaid, D. Another, decades old, evidence item 4B, victim garment. The analyst on shift, Patel, mid-30s, steady hands, no appetite for drama, loads the samples into the sequencer with the care of someone placing glass in a fire. The door shuts with a hiss. LEDs blink green. Somewhere inside that machine, cells begin to surrender their secrets, stretching open, uncoiling stories written in base pairs. Ruiz doesn't go home. She waits in the borrowed office at the local precinct, blinds half closed, coffee gone cold on the desk beside her. Parker sits opposite, staring at the same page he's been staring at for 10 minutes. The statement Kincaid gave. Every word he said that morning, every hesitation, every flicker. Ruiz reads it again, searching for cracks. They always leave cracks. You think he knows? Parker asks, voice low. That we've already got his DNA? Maybe. But I don't think he knows how deep it goes. He didn't run. He's had 27 years to believe he's safe. Running would mean admitting that story's over. I think he still thinks he's smarter than the system. Parker leans back, rubbing a hand over his jaw. It's wild, you know. He's just been walking around. Working. Buying groceries. Dating maybe. Meanwhile her mom's lighting candles every year. Ruiz looks at the photo pinned to the board, Rachel's school portrait, sun-faded at the edges. She looks impossibly young. They always do, Ruiz says quietly. They learn how to disappear in plain sight. A knock on the door breaks the air. A uniformed officer pokes his head in, holding a folder. Detective Ruiz? Lab called. Patel says results will be ready in about 2 hours. 2? Ruiz echoes. That's fast. He said the system didn't need long. The door closes. Ruiz exhales slowly, the kind of breath that sounds like it's been sitting in her lungs for years. 2 hours. After 2 hours, she'll know if the screen from last night was a miracle or a mistake. She pulls the old Carter case file toward her again, the paper soft from handling. There's a photo taken at the scene, grainy, sun-blasted, cruel. The clearing in the palmettos. The markers in the sand. She's seen it too many times, but she still feels the same cold up her spine each time she looks. Beneath the photo, the evidence log lists every item collected that day. For B, garment, partial biological trace. The same item that now, 27 years later, has called a name out of the darkness. Where were you in '98? Parker asks suddenly. Still in school, Ruiz says. Heard about it on TV. I remember the anchor saying something about how the town was in shock. My mom turned it off halfway through. Never thought you'd be here chasing it down. She almost smiles. Nobody does. The 2 hours pass like slow thunder. Calls come in, are answered, are ignored. Reports shuffle. The hum of air conditioning fills the silence. And then, finally, the phone rings. A short, sharp tone. Ruiz's hand moves before thought. Ruiz. It's Patel, the voice says on the other end, calm but tight. You might want to come down here. She stands so fast her chair tips. Parker follows without a word. Down the corridor, down another flight of stairs, through the coded doors that separate the regular police world from the scientific one. The lab smells like ethanol and electricity. Patel is waiting by the workstation, a printout in his hand. He doesn't make them wait. The profiles are identical, he says. Full match. There's no doubt. For a second, no one speaks. The only sound is the low whir of machines cooling down, the faint clicking of an inkjet printer pushing out another sheet of confirmation data. Ruiz takes the page, her eyes scanning the columns of numbers and peaks that mean everything to her. Match probability, 1 in 6.3 quadrillion. The kind of number that's less a statistic and more a sentence. She looks up at Patel. Chain of custody solid? Triple checked. I pulled the logs myself. No breaks, no contamination. The evidence was preserved perfectly. Whoever cataloged the stuff back in '98, they did it right. Ruiz lets the paper fall slightly at her side. The relief isn't joy. It's heavier than that. It's the release of a breath that's been held for too long, the kind that hurts when it finally comes out. Thanks, Patel, she says. He nods, professional, but his eyes soften. You get a lot of ghosts in here. Feels good to send one home. Back upstairs, the shift changes. Officers swap desks, grab coffee, complain about paperwork. The station is alive again, but for Ruiz and Parker, the world has narrowed to one point: Daniel Kincaid. They move with new precision now. No more conversation about possibilities. The plan unfolds in clipped phrases and nods. Arrest warrant, probable cause, extradition procedures. The local DA gets looped in, the state's attorney in Florida notified. Within hours, the paperwork turns from theory to action. Somewhere in the blur, a judge signs the warrant with a practiced stroke. The system, so slow for so long, finally begins to move like it remembers how. When they pull up to Kincaid's house again, it's early evening. The light has that orange edge that makes every shadow look longer. The neighborhood is quiet. Lawns watered. Sprinklers clicking. A woman across the street calls a dog inside, glancing briefly at the unmarked cars rolling past. Inside, Ruiz's chest feels like a drum. She's done this before, dozens of arrests, but this one hums differently. This one carries ghosts. Kincaid answers the door still in his work shirt. He looks surprised, but not shocked. Maybe he expected them. Maybe some part of him always did. Mr. Kincaid, Ruiz says, badge in hand. We have a warrant for your arrest. He blinks. For what? For the murder of Rachel Lynn Carter, committed in Palmetto Creek, Florida, in July of 1998. The words hit the air like thunder. His mouth opens, closes. He stares at her, waiting for the punchline that never comes. What? He starts, voice breaking on the word. No. That's crazy. Parker steps forward, smooth and calm. Turn around, sir. Hands behind your back. The sound of metal on metal, cuffs tightening, is crisp, final. Ruiz reads him his rights, her voice steady even as something inside her wants to tremble. He tries to interrupt, insists they're making a mistake, insists he doesn't know what they're talking about. His words tumble, messy, desperate, until they fade under the weight of her silence. Neighbors appear on lawns. Curtains twitch. Phones lift, recording. The small spectacle of justice delayed now replaying itself in the age of social media. A man led down his own driveway, flanked by plainclothes detectives. Cameras flash, digital this time instead of film. The irony isn't lost on Ruiz. In 1998, they couldn't even get a clear image of the suspect. Now, his face is going to be everywhere before they reach the station. At booking, Kincaid sits stone still under the fluorescent lights as his mugshot is taken. The number hangs below his chin like punctuation. He refuses to look at anyone. When the fingerprint scanner hums to life, he stares at the wall. His silence has changed now, not the careful, confident quiet of a man who thinks he's safe, but the thick, brittle kind that only comes from fear. Hours later, he sits in an interrogation room again. Different state. Different walls. Same table. Ruiz watches him through the glass, not yet entering. He's slouched, eyes down, fingers tracing invisible patterns on the surface. There's something hollow in his posture, the early collapse of someone who just realized the past isn't finished with him. Parker steps beside her. You think he talks? He'll talk, she says. They always do. Not because they want to. Because silence starts to sound like guilt. When she finally walks in, he doesn't look up right away. She sits opposite him, lays the case file on the table between them like a silent threat. Mr. Kincaid, she says softly, we ran the test. He swallows. And? It came back positive. For a moment, his expression is pure confusion, almost childlike. What does that even mean? It means your DNA was found on the victim's clothing, Ruiz says evenly. The same DNA we collected from you this morning. That's impossible, he says, shaking his head. I didn't even know her like that. Ruiz leans forward. You told us you barely spoke. But the evidence says otherwise. He laughs, a dry, disbelieving sound. No. You're wrong. It's gotta be a mistake. You people, you mix things up all the time. Parker, standing near the wall, folds his arms. The evidence sat sealed for 27 years. 2 labs confirmed it. If it's mixed up, it was mixed up before you were even out of your 20s. Kincaid's breathing quickens. His hands twitch against the cuffs. You don't understand, he says. I didn't do anything to her. Ruiz keeps her tone even, unflinching. Then help us understand. Because right now, the only story that makes sense is that you were there. That something happened. That she ended up dead in a clearing outside town and your DNA ended up on her. He looks up finally, eyes glassy with a mix of fear and fury. I didn't kill her. The words sound rehearsed, like he said them in his head for years, just in case. She lets the silence eat the room again. Lets the hum of the light fill the space where his excuses should live. You remember where you were that night? She asks. He opens his mouth, then closes it again. Home, he mutters. Watching TV. Alone, Parker adds. Yes. Alone. Convenient, Ruiz says. Same thing you said in 1998. He flinches. You read that? I've read everything, she says. Every page. Every word. Every time someone knocked on your door and you smiled and said you didn't know anything. I didn't. Then explain the DNA. I can't. The words rip out of him, raw and jagged. For a moment, he looks genuinely lost, trapped in the echo of something he can't explain away. His face reddens. He looks at the table, the floor, anywhere but her. Maybe it was on something she touched, he says quickly, desperate now. Transfer or whatever. Maybe she borrowed something from me. Like what? Ruiz asks. A rag from your garage? A shirt? A piece of her own clothing? His mouth opens, but no words come. The hole he's digging fills itself. Ruiz leans back, voice soft. You want to tell me what really happened that night? He shakes his head violently. No. There's nothing to tell. But she sees it, the flicker in his eyes, the one that betrays memory. He remembers something. They always do. She closes the file. We'll talk again, she says, standing. As she leaves, Parker exhales hard. He's cracking. He's remembering, Ruiz says. He just hasn't decided whether to lie or to confess. They step into the hallway. Outside the window, the night deepens. The precinct hums with the quiet satisfaction of motion, an old ghost finally caged. But in Ruiz's chest, there's no victory. Not yet. There's only the steady pulse of unfinished business. Because she knows the hardest part is still coming. The press. The trial. The mother who will have to hear that the man arrested for her daughter's murder once lived just across the street, smiling, waving, blending into every photograph of normal life. and somewhere in that mother's house, a single framed photo will still sit on the mantle, a 17-year-old girl in a white tank top, frozen midsummer, unaware that even decades later, her story would return to life on a single breath of a machine that hums under fluorescent light, whispering the truth the living could never find. Night settles over the station like a weight. The fluorescent lights don't dim, but everything feels darker. The adrenaline of the arrest has burned off, leaving only the grind. Paperwork. Strategy. The question that never really goes away in a room like this: did we finally get him, or did we just drag another body into the undertow of an old tragedy? In a borrowed conference room, Ruiz and Parker sit with a laptop open, a secure video connection flickering to life. On the screen, hundreds of miles away in Florida, the sheriff of Palmetto Creek appears, older than in the photographs from '98, hair gone mostly gray, shoulders stooped but still solid. Beside him sits an assistant state attorney, jaw clenched, pen tapping. "You really have him?" the sheriff asks without preamble. His voice has that sanded-down quality that comes from decades of making bad announcements to good people. "We have his DNA on the victim's clothing," Ruiz says. 27-year-old sample. Twice confirmed. His buccal swab matches the profile from your evidence. Full hit. The sheriff exhales, long and slow, like someone letting air out of an old balloon. For a moment he looks away, eyes shining in the ghostly light of the screen. "I knocked on that man's door," he says quietly. "Stood on his damn lawn. He offered my deputies iced tea." The prosecutor leans forward. "Has he confessed?" "Not yet," Ruiz says. "He's denying, blaming lab mistakes. But he agreed to the swab. That'll play." "Get everything recorded," the prosecutor says. "Every word. Every flinch. If he doesn't confess, the DNA will carry this, but a jury likes a story. You know that." The sheriff nods once, then looks straight into the camera, into Ruiz's face. "She still has a mother," he says. "She still lives in town. Works at the grocery store where Rachel was last seen. You want me to tell her, or you want to wait until you have more?" Ruiz feels the room tilt for a second. She can picture that store, the buzzing open sign, the sliding doors, the aisles that never really changed. The idea of the mother still walking those tiles, still ringing up customers in the same building where her daughter was last captured on grainy video, makes the back of Ruiz's throat burn. "Tell her," Ruiz says softly. "But be careful how much hope you hand her. We have the science. We don't have his story yet." The call ends. The screen goes black. Somewhere in Florida, a man who once put up yellow tape around a drainage ditch is picking up a phone to make the hardest call a cop can make, the one that says we might finally have something and might still lose it. In a small, neat house 10 minutes from that grocery store, the phone rings on a wall mount that looks like it belongs in another decade. The woman who answers has lines around her mouth that weren't there in the photos from '98. Her hair is thinner, more gray. Her voice, when she says hello, is careful, like every word has to be tested before it comes out. "Ms. Carter, it's Sheriff Dalton," the voice says. "You got a minute?" She's quiet for a beat. The sheriff's calls are rare now. Anniversary dates. A new detective joining the cold case unit. Another empty update. She braces without even knowing it. "Of course," she says. "Is everything okay?" There's a pause. A clearing of the throat. "We've made an arrest," he says. "In Rachel's case." The world narrows to the handset pressed against her ear. The hum of the refrigerator falls away. The ticking of the kitchen clock becomes deafening. She fumbles for a chair but doesn't find it, ends up leaning hard against the counter, knuckles white around the cord. "An arrest," she repeats, as if trying the words on for size. For Rachel. Yes, ma'am. Based on DNA. New testing on the old samples. The suspect's name is. She interrupts without meaning to. Is it a mistake? He hesitates, and that hesitation tells her everything about how many years he's had to practice caution. We're as sure as we can be right now, he says. The lab's confident. Florida sent a detective out of state. They've taken him into custody. I didn't want you to hear it from the news first. She looks at the fridge. There, under a magnet shaped like a seashell, is a faded photo of a teenage girl at the beach, one hand lifted to shield her eyes from the sun. For 27 years she has talked to that picture when the house is too quiet. For 27 years she has lit candles, attended vigils, watched press conferences that always ended with the same words, still investigating. Does this mean she starts, then stops? Swallows. Tries again. Does this mean it's over? The sheriff doesn't lie to her. He never has. It means we have someone to hold responsible, he says. It means the case can move forward. There's going to be a trial. You'll have to hear things. See things. But you'll also get to sit in a courtroom and look at whoever did this. His voice softens. Ms. Carter, I can't promise how it ends. But this is more than we've had in a long time. She nods, even though he can't see it. Her eyes sting, but the tears don't fall yet. They're caught somewhere between rage and relief, between the habit of grief and the strange, fragile bloom of something she doesn't quite recognize anymore. Hope. I'll be there, she says. Wherever it is, whenever it is. I'll be there. After he hangs up, she stays in the kitchen for a long time, the dial tone buzzing in the air like an insect. Finally, she lifts a hand and touches the edge of the photo on the fridge. You hear that, baby? She whispers. They found somebody. It doesn't feel real. Not yet. But for the first time in years, the house feels a little less like a mausoleum and a little more like a waiting room. Back in the other state, news travels differently. Not by careful phone call, but by rumor, text, and the quiet wildfire of social media. An employee at the warehouse posts in a group chat, cops took Dan away in cuffs. Another mentions overhearing old murder in Florida. By the time local reporters catch the scent, there's already a name floating through comment sections. An old photo harvested from a work party. A mugshot from a prior minor arrest. Screenshots begin to spread with captions like "Coworker arrested in decades-old cold case and he lived right among us." At the precinct, they're bracing for that storm. The press office is already drafting a statement. The phrase multi-agency cooperation is being typed and retyped. Somewhere, a public information officer circles words like alleged and ongoing investigation in red. But in the interrogation room, timelines and headlines don't matter. There is only one clock, the one ticking inside the suspect's head. Hours have passed since the first round of questioning. They gave him a break, a sandwich he barely touched, a paper cup of coffee that went cold in his hands. Now he stares at the table, eyes unfocused, as if expecting the wood grain to rearrange itself into a map out of here. Ruiz walks back in, a thin folder in hand. It's not the full case file this time. Just a carefully chosen stack, a map of Palmetto Creek in 1998, blown up and marked. A printed still from the grocery store security footage where Rachel walks out into the evening. A photo of the dirt track leading to the clearing where her body was found. And on top, a single sheet of paper from the medical examiner's office. Kincaid's eyes flicker to the folder, then away. He doesn't ask what's in it. Some part of him already knows. Let's talk again, Ruiz says. Her tone is different now, less conversational, more surgical. He doesn't answer. She lays the map down first. Palmetto Creek, sketched in colored lines. Streets. The Carter house marked with a red circle. His old address, another circle. A thin blue line traces a route from his driveway to the service road where the drainage ditch sits. Another line from there to the clearing. You see this? She asks. He glances, then looks away. So what? That's the neighborhood you lived in, she says. That's the road where they found her shoe. That's the path the search teams took. And this, she taps the blue line. This is the drive from your house to where her body was found. 15 minutes. Less, if you didn't hit red lights. He snorts. Lots of people could have driven that. Sure, she says. But not lots of people left their DNA on her clothes. She slides the medical examiner's sheet closer. The clinical language sits heavy between them. Evidence of blunt force trauma. Evidence of sexual assault. You want to know what they found? She asks quietly. He stares at the paper like it might burn him. No. They found she was alive when she got to that clearing, Ruiz continues, ignoring the answer. They found she fought. They found skin under her nails. He squeezes his eyes shut for a second too long. It's small, but she sees it. Stop, he mutters. I don't want to hear that. Do you think her mother wanted to hear it? Ruiz asks. Do you think the officers who had to pull her out of the dirt wanted to see what they saw? You think anybody wanted this? He smashes his palms against the table, cuffs clinking. I didn't kill her. The outburst hangs in the air, vibrating. Ruiz doesn't flinch. Then tell me what you did. His chest rises and falls, hard and fast. The color in his face has drained to a sickly gray. He looks suddenly smaller, swallowed by the chair. I told you, he says hoarsely. I was home. Alone. I heard the sirens later. You told us that in 1998, Ruiz says. You told us that again this morning. But the thing is, Daniel, the science doesn't care what you told us. She lays the lab report on top of the medical examiner's sheet. Columns of numbers. Alleles. A match probability that makes coincidence laughable. This is you, she says. On her. No mix-up. No contamination. No transfer from a handshake on a sidewalk. This isn't a crime show. This is math. He stares at the page. His lips move, forming words that never come out. Finally, he leans back, eyes glassy. She came to my house once, he says, the words emerging like gravel. Okay? Maybe that's it. Ruiz's pulse spikes. Parker, in the corner, shifts his weight almost imperceptibly. When? She asks. I don't know. A week before she disappeared. 2 weeks. She came by selling raffle tickets for school. Knocked on the door. I answered. She was polite. Shy. I bought 2 tickets. Maybe she brushed against me or something. Maybe that's how. It's weak. Thin. But to a drowning man, any piece of driftwood looks like a lifeline. We checked with her school, Ruiz says. There was no raffle that month. Try again. He flinches like she slapped him. It was something like that. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. What about the night she vanished? She presses. Did she knock then? Did you offer her a ride? Did you tell yourself you were just being nice? His jaw sets. No. Did you see her at the store? Follow her out? No. Did she get in your car? No. The denials are automatic now, reflexes. But the way his eyes keep darting to the photos on the table betrays him. The map. The dirt road. The blurred frame of a teenage girl stepping through sliding glass doors, light bouncing off her hair. Daniel, Ruiz says, her voice dropping, you've had 27 years to live with this. You know what happened. I don't need you to tell me to make the case. The jury will see the DNA. They'll see the map. They'll see where you lived and where she ended up. But you need to decide what you want your story to be. He laughs, a broken sound. My story? I'm the villain either way. You're the suspect, she corrects. What you choose to say decides whether you go down as a monster who never cared, or as someone who at least tried to tell the truth at the end. His eyes flash. You think that matters? It will to you, she says. In the dark. When this room is a memory and all you've got are your own thoughts. It will matter a lot. He looks at the photo of the clearing. At the thin outline of a body drawn in marker where her bones were found. His fingers twitch, cuffs rattling softly. The clock on the wall ticks. Somewhere in the building, a phone rings, a printer spits out another form, life goes on. I didn't mean to, he says suddenly, so quietly she almost misses it. The room stills. Parker straightens. Ruiz doesn't move. What did you mean to do? She asks. His eyes stay on the table. It wasn't supposed to go like that. The door to the future cracks open, just a fraction. He's not confessing, not really. Not yet. But he's stepped over a line, from absolute denial into the gray. Tell me, Ruiz says. Start with how she ended up near your house. Start with why your DNA is where it should never be. He shakes his head, tears standing unshed in his eyes now. You'll twist it. The lawyers will twist it. Everybody will. Maybe, she says. But the story is in your head right now, whether you tell it or not. The only difference is whether her mother gets to hear it too. Somewhere in Palmetto Creek, that mother sits at her kitchen table, a cup of untouched tea cooling in front of her. The voicemail light on her phone blinks with messages she hasn't listened to yet, neighbors, news stations, old friends who saw something on TV and called to ask if it's true. On a local channel, a crawl at the bottom of the screen reads, Breaking, Arrest Made in 1998 Florida Cold Case. The anchor's voice is hushed, reverent, as if speaking in a church. They're calling it solved, the neighbor who knocks on her door later will say, breathless. They've finally solved it. But inside the interrogation room, Ruiz knows better. A case can be solved on paper, evidence lined up, charges filed, a suspect in cuffs, and still leave a hole where the truth should be. DNA can tell you who. It can't tell you why. It can't tell you what words were said in the last moments of a 17-year-old girl's life, or what went through her mind when the world shifted from ordinary to nightmare. That part will always be guesswork. That part will always be haunted. Across the table, Daniel Kincaid opens his mouth, closes it, then opens it again. It was hot that night, he begins, voice barely above a whisper. She was walking alone. I pulled over. And as he finally starts to talk, halting, self-serving, full of gaps and omissions, the tape rolls, the clock ticks, and somewhere far away, a mother's fingers curl tighter around the handle of her teacup without knowing why, like a body reacting to thunder it hasn't heard yet. It was hot that night. That's how he starts, like he's telling a story about the weather and not the last moments of a 17-year-old girl's life. His eyes are fixed on the table, but his voice isn't as steady as he wants it to be. It was one of those nights where the air doesn't move, he says. You remember those? Ruiz doesn't answer. She remembers plenty of nights like that in Florida. But this isn't about her memories. This is about his. I'd gone out for a drive, he continues. Couldn't sleep. Old car had no AC, so I just rolled down the windows, you know? Drove past the plaza, the grocery store. And that's when I saw her. The frame on the grainy security footage lives in Ruiz's head. 5:42 p.m., July 1998. Rachel stepping out into the fading light, plastic bag in one hand, ponytail swinging. It ends there, that tape. A door closing on a life. You saw her where? Ruiz asks. On the sidewalk, he says. Walking alone. Head down. Bag in her hand. I recognized her. She lived across from me. I thought, he swallows. I thought, it's late. It's hot. I'll offer her a ride. That's all. On the table between them, the map of Palmetto Creek stares back in ink and lines. The grocery store. The Carter house. The thin blue route a girl should have walked without ever becoming a headline. You pulled over? Ruiz prompts. Yeah, he says. I pulled over. Rolled down the passenger window. I said, hey, you want a lift? I live just up the road. He makes it sound casual. Neighborly. Like a favor. In Ruiz's head, the camera shifts. She sees it as a news reenactment would show it, a car creeping along the curb, brake lights flaring, a teenage girl slowing, weighing the risk against the familiarity of a face she's seen mowing his lawn. She knew you, Ruiz says. You'd waved before. She'd seen you out front. I wasn't a stranger, he says quickly, latching onto that. I wasn't some guy out of nowhere. That's important. Important to him. Important to the story he's trying to build now, years too late. What did she say? Ruiz asks. She said she was fine, he mutters. Said it wasn't far. I said, come on, it's on my way. We went back and forth. Finally she got in. Just for a minute. You would have done the same thing back then, it was that kind of place. Nobody thought. He stops himself, jaw tightening. Nobody thought it could turn into a cold case special, into a lifetime of vigils and yellowing flyers. Nobody thought the neighbor was the one to be afraid of. She got in the front seat? Ruiz asks. Yeah. Seatbelt? He blinks. I don't remember. Maybe. I don't know. It was quick. Memory is slippery for the guilty. It's amazing how sharp it is for what makes them look good, how hazy for everything else. Where did you drive? She presses. To the street, he says. To our block. I was gonna drop her off. That was it. On the map, the line from the store to the Carter house is short. The line from the Carter house to the service road where they found her shoe is longer. But you didn't stop, Ruiz says. His fingers twitch against the cuffs. There was a patrol car near the end of the block, he says, talking faster now. I saw the lights. Thought maybe something was going on. I got nervous. I didn't want them thinking I don't know. I panicked and kept going. He glances up to see if she believes him. She doesn't give him anything. So you drove past her house, she says. With her in the car. With cops on the street. And instead of dropping her off 50 feet from her front door, you kept going. He nods, a jerky, miserable motion. Just for a little bit, he insists. I figured I'd circle back. Did she say anything? She asked what I was doing, he says. I said I'd turn around. It was tense. She looked uncomfortable. Uncomfortable. The word hangs there, obscene in its understatement. Where did you actually turn? Ruiz asks. He stares at the map, following the blue ink trail like it's as new to him as it is to her. Off the main road, he murmurs. By the ditch. There's a little cut through. I used to go there to smoke, sometimes. Parked there. Thought I'd wait until the car was gone, then go back. He's weaving. She can hear it. The half-truths, the edits, the pieces trimmed to make him look less dangerous, less predatory. But inside the messy shape of his account, there are details that haven't been in any file, details that only someone who was there could know. Those are what she listens for. What happened when you parked? Ruiz asks. He shifts in his chair, the cuffs scraping metal against metal. She got mad, he says. Said she just wanted to go home. Said this was weird. She reached for the door. I touched her arm. Tried to calm her down. I said, relax. I'm not gonna hurt you. He's crying now, or trying not to. The tears gather but don't fall. They make his eyes shine in a way that some jury, somewhere, might decide looks like remorse. I misread it, he whispers. I thought maybe she liked me. She'd smiled before. She'd waved. I thought. He cuts himself off when he sees Ruiz's expression darken. You thought what? She says, voice flat. That she wouldn't mind, he mutters. That maybe she'd, I don't know. It was stupid. I leaned in. I tried to kiss her.